Right, Star Trek Discovery, episode 6. Right, jumping straight into this. I enjoyed it. There was good points, there was bad points. If you watched my last review, I did have quite a bit of a moan about this whole jump drive thing. That wasn't in this particular episode so much, although there was a point that I need to pick out straight away with it, is, unless I missed something, at the end of the last episode, what we concluded was that we could use possibly human beings to do this jump drive thing, but it wasn't necessarily that safe. All that said, they just sort of went and did a jump drive anyway, which seemed a little bit rash and didn't seem to really have any major impact. But this bit where they jumped in to go and find Sarek, that seemed a little bit rash. And then it seemed even more rash when the Admiral turned up. She couldn't have been that many more hours after they got there, via warp obviously. Now, I mean, I don't know where their starting locations were and everything, but that did seem like, if this jump drive thing's a little bit risky and stuff, and we're not quite sure how it's working yet, maybe don't use it just, all the time like that. I don't know, maybe I'm completely wrong for pointing that out, but that seemed a little bit strange. The other issue I have with this episode, just so I get the issues out of the way first, is this whole thing with the Admiral and the Captain and them sleeping together. What? Like, I know they might have some history and everything, but really? Like, the Federation's morals and stuff, well, I suppose if we're going to go with Kirk, then maybe no, maybe not. Maybe this is exactly the sort of thing that would happen with Kirk's Federation, that era, and that's only a little short period away in terms of years and stuff like that compared to a lot of the others. But that did seem a little bit odd to me, especially as she sort of mentioned how when he pulled the gun on her and everything after they slept together, that she's had her doubts and stuff like this and blah 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 blah, and so she was sort of basically testing him out by sleeping with him. Is that really how this works? That seemed kind of weird to me. That said, I did like the way she then explained to him, the captain, that he was basically going to lose his commission because he wasn't really fit for duty. And I was thinking, oh no, what's he about to do? How could he possibly orchestrate something to screw her over here enough, as in kill her, take her out of the equation? And things fell into his lap, which was very nice. And the fact that all of a sudden, after jumping straight in there to save Sarek, he's not particularly too interested now on going to save her. And I thought that was good. So although that whole scene with them getting together, I think they could have approached that a bit differently personally. It didn't really fit in with Star Trek in the way I think it does. And that's sort of the way it's sort of slightly going wrong. Because of this whole jump drive, because of the way they're acting stuff and things are a bit different, the Klingons are different, you're almost starting to feel like, did you really want to use the Star Trek title for this? I know obviously it's going to bring in a lot more viewers and stuff like that, but actually, would it have been better to just make a TV series of something where you wanted to go off and you could do what you like and not be restricted by the Star Trek franchise? Because a lot of the sort of storylines and everything that we're sort of doing and the main bits of all of this are not really in the Star Trek universe as we know it. Which is a shame, because if you've watched my earlier reviews, I've really enjoyed this series, and I am still enjoying it, and I'll get into some of the other parts of the episode soon. But these things all sort of, it's all been stack up. There's a lot of, before you sort of overlook certain bits and bobs and think, we'll see how it goes. We're now into episode 6, and it's getting less Star Trek-y as we go on, which is a bit of a problem because it's called Star Trek. So going into some of the other parts of the episode, now I've got my moaning bit out of the way. Michael has now got a commission, although to be fair she hasn't yet, but throughout the episode she actually gets that, which is great, and she's a science officer. But yeah, this episode sort of develops a bit more about her and her background and what we sort of knew about her relationship with Sarek, which did worry me a little bit because I was thinking, oh no, we're going into sort of like a dream episode. And generally speaking, dream episodes or dream scenes in games and stuff, they're usually really painful. But I didn't actually mind this one too much, and the way the story developed and sort of, it was kind of a twist, why she didn't get the commission with the Vulcans. I didn't see that coming until a little bit before it happened, but then I'm sure everyone got it at that point. But yeah, that was quite good actually, and so it sort of changes the whole dynamic of what their relationship has been or what she thought it was, which then seemed to sort of take off the shackles somewhat with her, and we saw that towards the end of the episode where she reintroduced herself to Lieutenant Tyler, and so she's sort of become more humanised, it seems to be, from this experience or what she's learnt from Sarek and having this whole dream thing, and maybe arguably saving his life. So that was quite good, and the way that developed and stuff was much better than I thought it was going to go. So I actually quite enjoyed that bit. Okay, let's touch on a couple of the other things. Lieutenant Stamets, I believe we saw some quite good acting actually. He's changing a little bit. He seems to be a bit more sort of lighter mooded. His relationship with the captain seemed to be sort of softening a bit, at least from his perspective towards the captain. The captain seemed to be playing it exactly the same and sort of looking at him a little bit like, what's going on with you? We're going to see how that develops. I had a little bit of a moan about how I thought that might, well, not how I thought it might go, but it was a little bit annoying, I thought, in the last episode. We'll see. It does seem to be that, I guess, there was a bit, I think there was a suggestion that he was the one who was plugged into it. I'm pretty sure that was the case. And it seems to be that we're just going to willy-nilly plug him into it at any time. So yeah, we're going to see how that one's going to develop. On the other side of things, the Klingons, we didn't see too much of them through the episode until towards the end, where Sarek was supposed to be going and didn't, because he obviously got stopped by a extremist Vulcan who I thought was trying to stop Sarek to go to some sort of meeting with humans or another race, but not the Klingons. So it seems strange that, well, not strange, but it just shows how extreme these Vulcan extremists are, on a sort of sub note. But yeah, we see the Klingons at the end, and there's this sort of meeting being held between the Admiral and one of the Klingon leaders, I believe, of one of the Klingon houses, one of the females. I think we saw her in the first 2 episodes with the jewellery hanging down from her face. And the Admiral was there, I think, in terms of trying to sort of form an alliance, I guess, with that house. That didn't obviously turn out the way it was supposed to from the Admiral's perspective, and now she's been taken captive, and that's because these guys want to join Kol, who now has stealth tech, which means he's very strong, and that seems to be the way he's going to gain power throughout the Klingon Empire to get them all to follow him now, because he's basically saying, join me, you get the stealth tech, or the cloaking technology as we call it for the Klingons, don't join me, and I guess he'll plan to sort of fuck you up, really. So yeah, that was quite good. That's developed a little bit. There wasn't, like I say, there wasn't too much in it Klingon wise, but we saw a bit, and that worked well. So that storyline is sort of progressing along. So we're in episode 6, obviously. We're quite far into it, but I think it was a bit more of a sort of a building episode, a bit more. Well, there wasn't too much character building, I suppose. I guess we got to learn a bit more about the captain again. He just seems to be quite ruthless, a bit on edge, but obviously he wants to win the war. That seems to be, his goal, and he keeps sort of reaffirming that to everybody who ever questions him. Really, it's always about the war to an extent. He doesn't say those words, but he might have done. And it's progressing along reasonably well. Like I said, I've had a few moans at the start, and I think they're sort of probably justified. I mean, let me know if you disagree. But it's still good, and I'm still entertained, and I'm still going to be watching it, no doubt about that. However, there wasn't anything particularly that great in this episode, in my opinion. There's a few bits which are a little bit questionable. The story sort of progressed a little bit, but it was one of those sort of mid-season, and I'm not quite sure it's completely mid-season, but middle-ish of a season episodes. And so for that reason, I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10.